Hey everyone, welcome back to Go Ask Gabby. This is episode number 7, and this week's topic is how to keep the fights clean during. So, the question that I chose is when I get mad, my emotions overflow, especially when I'm tired or stressed. I get triggered and find myself yelling or being reactionary in some way. In the heat of it, I say things that I later regret, but I can't seem to stop myself. Is there a way to control my emotions? I feel like I have to let it out. I so hear you and feeling like you need to let it out. These are intense times, even if the issue isn't between you and your beloved, just the stress of life. Maybe you're juggling kids, shifting from working at home to working at office, or any of the changes that so many of us have been going through in the last year and a half. And then some. Life was already stressful. So I just want to acknowledge the nature and the dynamic and how often we end up taking that out on those closest to us. So I hear you. Yes, we do need to let it out, but we don't want to let it out in such a way that it becomes, a projection or emotional vomit on our beloved, right? So I have some specific tips for you today, but I first wanted to, one, empathize with the intensity of our times. And you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. This is very human. We just want to distinguish between human versus helpful. Even if things are understandable and justifiable, if it's not helpful, then are you really getting what you want? So first of all, we're talking about your couple culture. I just want to frame the tips that I'm going to share with you are in the context of a couple culture. So just start to look at, well, what is normal for you? It sounds like the yelling has been normal, and it's great that you're aware of it and you want to not do that because you're coming from reaction. So that one of the questions I often ask a couple is, are you coming from reaction or are you choosing a response? So if you're not choosing a response, then let's slow things down. And I'm going to give you some activities or exercises or tools you can use it moment by moment to shift out of the grip of the emotional hijacking that sometimes we find ourselves in. We're human. Happens to me too. Last week, I got upset with Raj, and I wasn't really upset with Raj. I was just stressed on some other dynamics and things that were happening. And I could see myself being kind of bitchy about something and stubborn. He made a request that I wasn't happy with his request, and I just behaved poorly. Now, that's not normal for us. So he was really patient with me because that's not normal. So very quickly, but especially the next day, I owned that, yes, I didn't like the comment, but that's no way to behave. I was coming from reaction, not from response. So just being aware of what is part of your couple culture, what's the fabric of how you relate to each other. Are you yelling at each other? Do you take a breath before you say something? Are you blaming or are you taking ownership? Do you express more contempt often or are you expressing compassion? Contempt was something I definitely did early on in my marriage until I read about John Gottman from the Gottman Institute, aka the Love Lab. And he said that contempt is one of the top 5 things that will kill a relationship, right? And so I found myself, if I ever rolled my eyes, like, don't do that. Contempt, that's not good, right? And also part of your couple culture I'm asking you to look at is, do you find yourself creating forgiveness or do you want to get even after a conflict? So just look at the couple culture that you're creating, and it's not about one experience, it's about the pattern of those experiences. So these are all in the topic. As I said, we chose this question for the topic of fights clean. How do you keep the fights clean in the middle of an argument? And the key to that is really a pattern interrupt, because if you're in an argument, then it's probably not a healthy dynamic. Sure, we need to get things out, and I'll get to the venting part in a minute. But when you're in it with your beloved, you don't want to be, if you're erupting with emotional vomit, it's not very helpful. If you're blaming, they tend to go in defending, even if you're right. It's just not helpful. Human, understandable, justifiable. I'm all about being practical, and it's just not helpful. So a lot of these tips are looking at pattern interrupts. So I'm going to give you a few specifics here. First, we've got stop, shift, start. So this is actually the very first relationship tool that Raj and I ever came up with, well before we started teaching relationship work and I started doing relationship coaching. And that is when we could just sense, like, this is not who we are. This is not our couple culture, the way we're talking to each other right now. I've got one toe in how we say we are. And in that case, we've created a relationship vision. We call it our marriage mantra. And so we're referring to that. We're not being that, right? I encourage you. Part of Part of the one way to have you have better control of your emotions is actually to have something worth playing for, worth truing up to, worth reaching out to when you're having a tough time. And just calling, I call stop, shift, start. We even pretend to throw down a flag or blow a whistle. And if you have a Fights Clean Sex Dirty toolkit like we do, and we will be sharing those soon, we do share them in our coaching program. But the Fights Clean Sex Dirty toolkits, we actually have props and things we keep accessible and nearby to lighten up and shift out of that conflict. That's part of our couple culture, is bringing play even when it's conflict. So stop, shift, start. I call stop, shift, start. And you can call it on yourself. You can call it to the relationship. You can say it internally. You can say it out loud. But just stop, shift, start. Is like, okay, I'm going to stop this dynamic where I am. I'm going to shift and I'm going to start towards what I know and what I've said I want to be, and what I've declared myself to be when I was in my greatest self and when I created my vision in the first place. So do create a vision if you don't have one, but you can still use stop, shift, start even if you don't have a clear vision declared. But I do encourage it. All right, next tip. First, restore connection. So you're yelling, and I know that's because you have a need that's going unmet, and you want to have that need met. Might be for peace, it might be for connection. I like to look at the 7 core human needs from Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication, which are connection, honesty and trust, autonomy, meaning and purpose, physical well-being, play, and peace. So you want to identify what is that need, right? And you're trying to get that need met. So just remind yourself, you might say this to yourself or say this out loud, first restore connection, then resolve the conflict. Because trying to resolve conflict without connection, you're adversaries. So you want to become allies. Wait, I know we both disagree about this, but our love for each other is bigger than this argument. You could even just say that. Our love for each other is bigger than this argument. All right, the 4th tip, which is probably should be the first tip, but really, it's a pretty common. You've probably been told this before, but we need repetition, and that is to breathe. Breathe. It's free. You never leave home without it, and it can shift. It just makes miracles happen in a very, very short period of time. The trick is to just do it and to use it, right? I personally like the 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out breath. So. So 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4. And just the focusing on that dynamic is enough to calm you down. And it will help you first restore the calm, restore the connection, and then you can resolve the conflict, right? And I've mentioned a few times, human, not helpful. That's my 5th tip. So just say that mantra to yourself. Okay, it's human. It's understandable you're upset, you're stressed, you're tired, things aren't going well. It's just not helpful. And if you want connection, if you want partnership, if you want support, if you want resolution, then let's focus on what is actually going to make a difference, not just on what's justified, right? All right, your 6th tip, soothing mantra. And I learned this one from Annie Lala and Eben Pagan. And at the time they told me the principle, the psychology principle it's based on, which I don't remember, and I've tried to find it. But the soothing mantra is all about this concept that if you tell your beloved exactly how you want them to sound, what words to say, what physical traits to use or actions to use at the particular time when your beloved is upset, and of course you can do this for yourself as well, even if your beloved isn't doing it for you. But you can do it for your beloved, you can do it for your relationship, you can do it for yourself. So you want to have a soothing mantra in the first place. The soothing mantra I use, the words at least, are, this is a dark moment, but it's only a moment and we'll get through it together. I'm more of the one that has the abandonment issues, and you'd resolve this if you cared, you'd get in here right now. So just reminding me that we are going to get through this is a great soothing mantra for myself and for my husband to give me. Now, when I went to ask my husband, it wasn't just what he wanted me to say. When I was trying to listen to him and show my empathy and soothe him, I would tilt my head and nod. Like, yeah, I really feel you. I'm really hearing you. Apparently, he found that extremely annoying and even condescending. And when I asked him, how do you want me to hold my body? What are the words to say? He wanted me to tilt. He said the words were less important, but he wanted me to have my head up and not bouncing. So I had to practice that. So find for yourself, what do you want to, when you're upset and you want to be soothed, what do you want to hear? For me, the physicality is I like it when Raj puts his fingers behind my back, pulls me to him, and puts his forehead to my forehead. And that's when he says the soothing mantra. This is a dark moment, but it's only a moment and we'll get through it together. So create your own mantra for yourself, your relationship. Ask your beloved what would work for them, right? Okay, I have two more tips for you. The seventh tip is wheels for a wonderful relationship. I wrote a blog about this a couple of weeks ago. So if you go to forbetter.love and to the content page, just search for wheels and you'll find it. And there's a couple of wheels in there already. We have more coming. I'm sure is in there already. We have several tips on what to do in the middle of a fight. Some of them I've already mentioned with the soothing mantra and the stop, shift, start. But we're building a wheel of all of our tips when you're in the middle of a fight. So if you just bookmark that one to your phone and you're having an argument, just open up your phone, have it where it's bookmarked, easy to find, click on it, spin the wheel, pick a tool, any tool. All right. And finally, our last tip for this week for how to keep the fights clean during, how to hold it together when I'm losing my shit and I'm saying things that I just need to get out. Well, I want you to get them out. It's healthy to get them out, just not on each other. I once did a process where I was helping a couple just hear each other, see each other's perspectives. They were empathizing and validating and just reflecting back, making sure that they both just really got each other. And at the end, one of them said to me, well, when do I get to dump? And I said, you don't dump on your partner. It's not healthy. It's just not. And those words last. You might get over it, but it's going to take them a lot longer to get over what they've heard. So as I said, those things might be human, they might be understandable, but not helpful. So you want to get the venting out, but just be careful who you vent to. It might be a friend. Make sure they listen to you, but also don't listen to you because they're going to believe you and you're going to forgive your beloved a lot faster than they will. So be careful who you vent to. I have a process called Venting for Victory in my personalized coaching where I do 90 minutes with you, where the first 20, 30 minutes you vent and I say nothing. The next 20, 30 minutes I draw out even worse, like have you call them names. And then the last 30 minutes, I help you translate it into what are the feelings and what are the needs and how can you communicate this to your beloved in an empowered and empowering context. So yes, vent, but be careful who you do it with and don't get stuck there. You don't want to use your angst and your stress and even the circumstances as the excuse, the justification to, let that emotional vomit out on your beloved. Get it out, get the uglies out, but make sure you're doing it in a way that's actually going to be helpful and not hurtful. So that is how to keep the fights clean during. Several different tips we got in there. I think 7 or 8 different tips on this one. Thank you so much for continuing to send in your questions. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for suggesting that we do this in the first place. It's my joy and delight to blow wind in the sails of you having the most playful, peaceful, passionate relationship possible. And we do that by being proactive. We do that by getting support. We do that by bringing play to loving better, because it's not about loving perfectly. It's about loving better. And you can't change your beloved. You can only inspire and delight them. So focus on what you can do yourself. I love, love, love this question because that's what you were asking is, how can I control my shit? How can I keep my shit tight, right? And make sure that I'm coming from response and not reaction. So thanks for this question today. And for all of you who've been sending in your questions, keep them coming. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week.